From the cutting edge of anomaly research, you are about to experience The Evidence with your host, 3D pioneer and image analyst with Mars X3D, D.W. Gannett.
Well, hi there. Why not join me here in the lodge? This is a strange place where everyday and normal don't apply, but it is a safe place. This is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. And I wanted to remind you that we have the largest, clearest, most definitive collection of Martian anomalies available anywhere. And best of all, it's all free and it's all in stereographic X3D, along with hopefully rational and balanced analysis. Now, I'm telling you this not to pat myself on the back, but to make you aware that you are the reason for all of it. Without you, your active participation, your comments and suggestions, and your support, it would cease to have all but the most minimal intrinsic value. It's all just a string of zeros, if you will, until you put that one, that'd be you, in front of it. And suddenly, it amounts to something that has value and meaning. So, thank you so much for being that one. Now, if you haven't joined us yet on our live hangs every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, GMT -4 for you nuclear physicists out there, you're missing a lot of fun. It's a wide-ranging field of questions, and everyone who participates gets to see, are the only ones to see for that matter, all of the images going into that week's episodes before anyone else. And we get some very valuable discussion and comments on those, which many of the time are incorporated into the videos, like this one. So I hope you'll consider joining us. Bunch of good stuff this week. So let's dive in. Let's start out with something small but kind of hard to argue with. You can see it just fine there inside the green target. I'm gonna circle it so there's no confusion out there. That is way too perfect to be random erosion. I know I sound like a broken record, but here again we see bilateral symmetry, a flawless curve or number of curves, and a uniform shape. I'd love to go over there and scoop away the sand to see whatever the rest of this arched stone is part of. And now look at this. It really looks a lot like a large nose cone for a rocket, doesn't it? The perfect shape and those two eye holes. I have no idea what this might actually be, but it really doesn't seem natural to me. And of course, a case could be made for all the other items in this picture being anomalous. But we've got a lot more to look at, so let's keep moving. For those of you new to the whole idea of non-fractal geometry, you can understand it in this very basic way. If you see a piece of wood just lying on the ground, say a big chunk of branch that blew down in the storm, then you see right next to it a nicely finished cubical wooden box with a fitted top. Do you think you can figure out which one is natural and which one was made by an intelligent hand? You instinctively know the answer because the man-made box incorporates whole numbers divided by fractions, or what's known as non-fractals. Natural items are based upon fractals, fractions divided by fractions, which results in never-ending patterns that appear mostly random to our eyes. So, there inside the yellow target is something shouting non-fractal, a perfectly square opening in a place where such things shouldn't be. And there you have it, a square opening, about, 2 to 3 feet across, and you can see that it's hollow with parallel triangular sides. Is it a storage container or an entrance to an underground lair, a ventilation shaft maybe? And I like that nearly perfect ball over on the right side. Is that natural? The result of tumbling in a stream? Probably, but it sure looks a lot more spherical than anything I've ever found here on Earth. But you gotta remember that Mars has magic water and magic wind and magic sand that shapes things into quasi-artifacts to fool all us pitiful people. And don't forget the weather balloons. Lots of weather balloons up there. This is a well-weathered slope over on Murray Buttes, and I almost passed it over because the image quality here is frankly pretty low. But when I saw what looked like a cylinder inside the target box, I had to go in for a closer look. I get the impression of a carved and worn pillar. Besides the band running around the left end, there's a little squiggle near the top that gives the appearance of being gold, or at least golden in color. It's possible the colors you see are just a processing artifact on NASA's part, but you never know. Meanwhile, if you take the time to let your eyes wander around this photo, you'll see all kinds of suspicious squiggles and circles and more. Are these the crumbling remains of an ancient building, or just a pile of soft rock that's been scoured by wind and sand for thousands of years? As far as I know, this is the first pyramid that Percy has found. You already know that pyramids are everywhere on Mars, and in this context view, that sucker is just about off the map, way off there, inside the green target. You gotta know that with the extreme distance and high magnification, this is not going to be a pristine, crystal clear image, but you can see the pyramid, sure enough, and it even has a dark outliner on the perimeter and possibly a dome or entrance right in the front center. I'm tempted to call the holes and squiggles on the hills closer to us anomalies, but to be honest, at this distance, they're almost certainly just rocks and shadows, blurred enough to make them look more mysterious than they actually are. In any case, we know that dust and dirt don't just pile themselves up into perfect pyramids with straight lines, equilateral triangles, and cleanly defined corners. Nevertheless, there's a very good chance this is just a weather balloon. It's pretty hard to miss this one, isn't it? People have jumped all over it by now, but so far I haven't seen anyone do a presentation or an analysis of it, so I may as well do it, right? And in X3D, of course. Let's move in on it, and I'll explain what this just might be. For those of you not familiar with Hindu culture, a lingam is usually an elongated oval stone representing Shiva's generative organs. They'll put these in temples and pour drink offerings over it as part of their worship. Notice the 3 lines on this one and the 3 lines on the inset. Now granted, they're not identical, but it does seem a strange coincidence to have similar objects with similar markings on them on different planets. We know that ancient Hindu culture had what they called Vimanas, which were essentially anti-gravity aircraft, complete with nuclear weapons. Did they travel to Mars as well? It could be. This panorama from Curiosity's survey of Murray Buttes is loaded with anomalies. Here's one I found a couple years back that I wanted to do as a redo now that I'm a little further along on the learning curve. It's inside the target box, and you can see that it's roughly 3 to 4 feet long. I like those kind of, gear teeth along the bottom and left edges, and I'd swear those are symbols carved into the right side. Notice, too, that there is bilateral symmetry present, and the top piece has at least one 90-degree angle still intact on the right side. The one on the left looks like the point is broken off, assuming there was one. Is this an ancient artifact? A time shield, so to speak, or just another example of remarkable erosion? There's a lot to see in this panorama by NASA. That chunk down on the lower right is definitely anomalous, and it's 4, maybe 5 feet long. Like several of the other anomalies in this PIA, this is one I found several years back that I felt would benefit from a higher resolution look. You can see for yourself that center section has been carefully carved out and shaped so this piece could slide down and lock onto another piece, having the corresponding positive shape that matches this cutout. Once again, we have that bilateral symmetry, one of the first usually reliable indicators of intelligent agency. And we also have those spheres all along the left edge to add a bit of confusion to the mix. Why are they there, and what are they for? Look at the end, closest to us. It has a nicely finished rectangle, and I'm counting at least 9 90-degree angles on it, all clean and square, and totally unlike what random erosion might cause. If this is what it appears to be, then the real goods are lying face down in the sand. I'd love to have a look at that other side, wouldn't you? In this section of the panorama, we find something I call a banana split. You can even see the banana here in the context view inside the target box. So, is this a fossilized plant or fossilized animal draped over this worked block? It kind of reminds me of a giant crinoid. I had one viewer tell me this was a coaxial cable attached to a bridge abutment. And notice the block. Not only does it have parallel sides and a rounded top, it appears to be up on at least 2 little table legs. You can see the notch at the bottom. And there seems to be carving on the side between the banana peels or whatever those petals are. There's no telling what this might actually be, although I'm tempted to think it's a carved decoration that was once part of a building. This beautiful GMAC by Neil Spence has any number of anomalies scattered about. I imagine other people have already pointed this one out, but I wanted to share it with you in 3D so you could help me make up my mind about it. There you see it, inside the green target, 2 big, shiny rocks lying off by themselves. So help me out here, because these two items are a real playground for pareidolia. The large one certainly resembles a man's face, doesn't it? And it looks like he's wearing some kind of headdress, too. The impression I get when I surrender myself to imagination is that these two possible heads remind me of the huge carvings of Pharaoh and his cohort that we see in Egypt. And check out the white stone behind them. It's rectangular, and its left edge is not only straight, but it's curved along its entire length. Is this part of the temple roof where these two statues once resided? Let me orient the image so the heads are more upright. Now, the face on the left is pretty badly worn, and of course it may not be a face at all. And even if the larger one is just a boulder, isn't it interesting that once again magical Martian winds have eroded two eyes in the right place, a cheekbone, a nose, a mouth, and a chin, all in the right place? These two colossi, if that's what they are, go hand in hand with all the other Egyptian-style artifacts we find on Mars. Or maybe I should say Martian-style artifacts we find in Egypt. I'm pretty sure PIA stands for Privacy Impact Assessment in NASA terms, but I'll bet one of you knows exactly what it stands for if I'm wrong. Our friend Terry Burnett pointed this one out a couple years back, so I thought I'd revisit Murray Buttes and have another look at it. This box-like jumble of parts has weirdness written all over it, and you'll want to notice that T-handled piece lying in the sand down in front. Let's get fuzzy. We can't really assign meaning to any of the pieces we're seeing around here, except for two things. Notice the platform on which this boxy thing sits. It's absolutely rigidly perfect in thickness, planes, and angles. More importantly, look at the sunlit part that continues down the right side. Absolutely perfect, in my opinion, and regardless of whatever it is that sits on top of it, this platform is so clearly non-fractal that I believe it isn't even worth arguing about. And then we have that T-handled object lying in the sand. It appears to be an auger. See the spiral going down its length? How does something like this happen naturally? If it is just an eroded rock, how did that spiral happen? And how come, in the process of it being eroded, that T-handle didn't just break off or wear away? I think these are fair questions to ask, don't you? Well, that wraps up another episode, and thanks so much for stopping by. By now, you know that we have Patreon and PayPal links down below to keep this channel ad-free, and my sincere gratitude goes out to our patrons and our contributors. Thank you for your generous help. Meanwhile, if you saw something you liked, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. It helps me know to continue this work. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and the bell. Stop by Tuesday night for our live hang and exclusive previews. And until then, this is your buddy Dave over at Mars X3D. Be well.